Welcome to Wisdom Unveiled, everyone.
Glad to be here.
In this, well, in our deep dives, we're kind of pulling back the curtain on these amazing conversations with Iranian philosophers like Dr. Dinani and Dr. Larijani.
Right.
It's a real privilege to have access to their insights. But we do want to say up front that since this is all translated, some things might not come across exactly perfectly.
Sure.
We apologize for that in advance. And if you have any feedback or suggestions, we are always open to hearing them.
Absolutely.
So this is episode 3, and today we're focusing on, well, the poetry of Hafez, that amazing Persian poet.
A wonderful choice. Hafez is endlessly fascinating.
He really is. And one of the things that just jumps out at you listening to the Marifet audio, these lectures, is how Hafez weaves together this idea of an inner spring and an outer spring.
It's a beautiful theme, isn't it?
It is, because you think about spring, you think about like this explosion of new life, this vibrancy, this incredible energy.
Right.
And you feel that same energy in Hafez's poetry. It's like his words are blossoming right in front of you.
Exactly. There's that sense of bursting forth of intense vitality that you mentioned.
So the big question we're grappling with today is, what is that core of Islamic gnosis, that mystical knowledge in Hafez's poetry? I mean, is he just like celebrating the beauty of spring, or is there something deeper going on here, like a journey for our inner selves?
Yeah, that's the key.
So the mystical path, which we call irfan, it's not just like some kind of intellectual exercise, right?
No, not
It's
at that.
about actually experiencing the divine, like a lived reality. And what's so amazing is that it's filled with joy, with this deep love, this longing for the beloved, even when there's that sense of separation that we talked about before, that yearning.
Exactly. Even the pain of separation from the beloved is seen as something precious because it speaks to the depth of that connection.
So let's dive into some of Hafez's poetry to see this in action. We're going to look at the very first ghazal in his divan, his collected works. It begins with this. It's
such a powerful opening ghazal, really sets the stage for everything that follows.
And right away, we notice something interesting about its structure. It's what's called mulama, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So what does that mean?
Mulama refers to poems where the verses are in different languages. So in this first line, we actually have Arabic and Persian woven together.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. The first part, that's Arabic, and then the second part, that's in Persian.
Let's break that down. So that first part in Arabic, that's in Persian.
Let's break that down. So that first part in Arabic, what's the literal meaning of those words?
Okay, so it's addressing a Saqi, which is a cupbearer.
And the phrase "adakasan wa nola" is like a request, like keep circulating the cup, keep offering it around. It's not just like a one-time thing.
So it's a continuous offering.
Yes, exactly. It's this ongoing flow.
And allegorically, like in the deeper mystical sense, who or what might this Saqi represent? And what about the cup? What's in that cup?
Well, the Saqi can symbolize a lot of things. It could be the divine itself or a perfect human being, like a spiritual guide.
Okay.
It could even just be the principle of spiritual guidance in general.
Mm-hmm.
And the cup, that's often understood as divine love, the knowledge of the divine itself.
Okay, so this idea of the cup needing to be constantly circulated, does that suggest that divine love, that knowledge, it's not just like a one-time event?
Exactly. That continuous flow is pointing to something that's endless. It's not temporary. Like in our material world, things kind of come and go. Yeah. But Hafez is hinting at something that transcends all of that. It's a love and a knowledge that are permanent, they're cyclical, they're always flowing.
So the intoxication that comes from this cup, it must be a very specific kind of intoxication.
Absolutely. This isn't about like worldly intoxication. It's about the Rhine of divine love and gnosis, that spiritual inebriation that lifts you beyond your senses, beyond this everyday reality.
Okay. So moving on to the second part of that line, the Persian part. Ej lulute, that means love seemed easy at first, but then difficulties arose. And there's a really subtle but important distinction in that word namud, which means seemed rather than bud, which would mean was.
Right. Namud suggests that initial perception of ease, it's like an illusion, It's not that love actually started out easy, it just appeared that way.
So we had this idea that it would be easy, but...
Exactly. And then but then those difficulties arose, and these are the challenges that are inherent in this journey of love, especially the kind of mystical love that Hafez is talking about.
What are some of the difficulties that we might encounter on this path?
Well, these are the trials of the spiritual journey. It's a quest to reach the beloved, the divine, and it can feel endless.
Right.
It's incredibly demanding. It's like navigating a really rugged terrain filled with all kinds of obstacles, before you reach that ultimate union. It's definitely not an easy stroll.
So it's not that comfortable, secure feeling that we might typically associate with the idea of love, especially in a romantic sense.
No, not at all. According to Hafez, true mystical love isn't about, seeking comfort or security. It's about facing these difficulties, these mushkila, head on. And in fact, it's understood that these very challenges, they make the love deeper. They make that eventual union even more precious. It's like the struggle itself refines the heart, purifies it.
Now, moving a little further into this ghazal, Hafez writes, quote, again, ishe, I isse, I issenche. That translates to, by the fragrance of the musk gland, the morning breeze will finally unfold from that freshness, from the twist of his fragrant black tresses, what blood fell into hearts. Wow, such vivid imagery there.
Oh, absolutely.
Let's unpack it a little. So first we have Saba, the morning breeze, and then there's J.D. Mushkin, those fragrant black tresses. What do those symbolize?
Okay, so Saba, the morning breeze, that's a really important symbol for Hafez. It's like a messenger, it brings good tidings.
Okay.
It carries the scent of love, news from the beloved. You can even think of it as divine inspiration itself,
Wow.
What's called nafaka Elahi, like this gentle stirring of the spirit from a higher source.
Okay, so it's not just a physical breeze, it's a spiritual.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then this Tara, this freshness that's unfolding from the nafe, the musk gland of a deer.
Right.
What's going on there?
That represents the pure essence of love. The fragrance of gnosis and spirituality emanating from its source. It's like this really subtle but powerful image of the inherent beauty and allure of the divine.
Then we have those Yeti Mushkin, the fragrant black tresses. What do they represent?
Okay, so those tresses, they're like a metaphor for the multiplicity of the world. All the different ways that divine beauty manifests around us.
Okay.
It's like, think of all the variety in the world,
Right.
Different people, different experiences, the whole spectrum of creation.
Yeah.
And all of that can be seen as reflections of the one.
Okay. That's beautiful. And then there's that tab, that twist or turn of these tresses that causes blood to fall in hearts. That sounds pretty intense.
Yeah, it is. It's like that tab signifies the impact that these divine manifestations have on the hearts of the seekers,
Oh, okay.
As they're navigating this complex world, striving for unity with the divine, these glimpses of beauty, they can be captivating,
Yeah.
and incredibly moving. It could even cause a kind of a delightful wounding in the heart.
Okay.
A deep stirring of longing and love.
So the mystic, the usache, they're able to perceive a unity within all of this diversity, whereas someone who isn't on that path, they might just see the separate parts.
Yeah, exactly. That's a really key difference in how they're perceiving the world.
Right.
The usache, they see that underlying oneness that connects everything, while others, they remain focused on those apparent divisions.
Okay, so in a way, the blackness of the tresses, it symbolizes all of that complexity, but it also holds the beauty of that underlying unity.
Exactly. And that usoji, that curliness, it further emphasizes how all of that multiplicity is interwoven.
Okay, that makes sense. So the next line reads, Okinsho, 10 2 3 charges the 10th left.
So yeah, there's conceline reads of, what security of pleasure is there for me in the abode of the beloved, when every moment the bell cries out to bind up the litters?
So what is Manzali Janan, the abode of the beloved, in this context?
Well, Manzali Janan can be understood as this world itself,
Okay.
the place where the divine is revealed. But Hafez is saying that, for the true lover, for the seeker, it's not a place of lasting security or undisturbed pleasure.
Okay.
There's this constant sense of movement, of impermanence.
Okay. And what about that jaras, the bell, that's constantly crying out? What does that represent?
The jaras is like the sound of the spiritual caravan,
Okay.
that's journeying towards the realm of meaning, towards the divine. It's a constant reminder that this world is fleeting,
All right.
and that we need to make spiritual progress.
Yeah.
Every time that bell tolls, it's like a call to keep moving forward on the path.
Okay, so those who can hear this jaras, they're the ones who are spiritually awake. They're the ones who are, paying attention.
Exactly. Exactly. They recognize that this is a constant flow, a constant change, and they don't seek that lasting security in the material world.
And those who are engrossed in the material world, they don't hear the bell.
They don't hear it. They're too caught up in those worldly pursuits,
Right. It's like they've tuned it out.
Yeah, exactly. They haven't tuned into that inner call.
Okay, now this next verse, it might sound a little surprising at first. It says, "Ugruk tevilat balwinyumast. Kajehevi falwihovi. O pusha okawala ahir. Peshkorukamajir. Hosha isa. Hisakesa." That translates to, "With wine, color your prayer rug, if the old sage of the Magians tells you. For the wayfarer is not unaware of the ways and customs of the stations." So who is this Pir-e Moghan, this old sage of the Magians? What does he represent?
Okay, so the Pir-e Moghan is a really important figure in Hafez's poetry. He represents a perfected human being, a spiritual guide, someone who has already walked the mystical path, and they have that wisdom, that experiential knowledge to guide others towards unity with the divine.
So it's like they've been there, done that.
Exactly. They're like an experienced traveler guiding newcomers through difficult terrain.
Okay, so the Pir-e Moghan is the guide, but then we have this instruction to color your prayer rug with wine. And that sounds pretty unconventional, to say the least.
It does. But here, the wine, it's not meant to be taken literally,
Okay.
Like, it's not about intoxicating liquor.
Right.
It's a symbol. It represents spiritual enthusiasm, a passionate love for the divine,
Right.
and the kind of divine grace that should infuse even our most formal religious practices, like the sajadat, the prayer rug. It's about bringing that life and fervor to our devotion.
So even if it seems to go against the usual norms or conventions, if this Pir-e Moghan tells you to do something, you should follow their guidance.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hafez is really emphasizing that surrender to the wisdom of this spiritual master, this wali, this friend of God, this complete human.
Right.
Even if it seems unconventional, even if it challenges our limited understanding.
So the Salik, the wayfarer who's already been on this journey, they know the ways and customs of the stations, the Ra'arazami Manzela, and they can guide others.
Exactly.
And that really highlights the difference between like a purely philosophical approach and a mystical approach, right?
Right.
Where philosophers might rely more on intellect, and the mystics, the Yusua, they really stress the need for a guide.
Yes, exactly. A philosopher, they use their intellect, their reasoning as their guide.
Yeah.
But Hafez, speaking from the perspective of a Shua, he's saying, no, you need someone who has that direct lived experience of the path,
Right.
someone who's been there.
So could it be that Hafez himself had this Owaisi connection where you can receive spiritual guidance even without a physical mentor, like through a deep inner connection with a perfected being? Is that why he doesn't always name a specific guide?
Yeah, it's possible. It's a really fascinating idea.
And that phrase, Salak Bakabar Nabud, the wayfarer is not unaware, it really points to the depth of knowledge and experience that the guide has, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They've walked the path. They understand its sympathies, its challenges, those moments of joy, moments of difficulty.
Yeah.
They can offer a kind of guidance that you just wouldn't get from intellectual reasoning alone.
Yeah. Okay. We're getting towards the end of this opening ghazal now, and the imagery in this next line is just so striking. It says, "Exagese, and is esexa simon simin slasa eesekaza ah." That translates to, "Dark is the night, and the fear of the waves, and such a formidable whirlpool. How should those light-burdened ones of the shore know our state?" It's like this really powerful picture of struggle and danger,
Yeah, it is.
So what's going on here?
Okay, so you have the dark night, the fear of waves, and the formidable whirlpool. And those are metaphors for the dangers, the challenges, the complexities of this spiritual journey.
Okay.
And of just existing in this world in general.
Yeah.
It's a depiction of that inner turmoil and the external obstacles that the seeker inevitably faces.
So the inner struggles, like our desires, our attachments, those are like the waves.
Exactly. And the whirlpool, that could be the overwhelming nature of those desires,
Right.
how they can just pull you under.
And then there's this really stark contrast with those sabuk baran, they say, hella, those light burdened ones on the shore.
Right.
They represent people who are.
Yeah, they're like, they're still on the shore. They haven't even stepped into the water yet.
Right.
They're seemingly carefree, oblivious to the struggles, the yearning of the Una who's out there in the turbulent waters.
So they just don't get it. They don't understand the depths of what the mystic is going through.
They don't. They don't. They're not aware of that inner battle, that longing for the divine that just consumes the seeker.
Okay. It really drives home the point that this path, the path of Ona, the spiritual journey, it's not a walk in the park.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
And even those who are, quite advanced on this path, the mukhlisan, the purified ones, they're in a constant state of vigilance. They know that they could fall at any moment.
Right.
There's a hadith that speaks to this, where it mentions that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he experienced a kind of spiritual clouding of the heart 70 times a day.
Wow.
And he sought forgiveness for that. So it's this constant need for self-reflection, for purification. And these are, these challenges are far beyond just, a simple earthly love.
So it's serious business.
Yeah, it is. It's not to be taken lightly.
So wrapping up our look at this opening ghazal, it seems that right from the very first lines, Hafez is presenting love as a really serious, demanding journey.
Exactly.
It's not for the faint of heart.
No, not at all. It's a path that's filled with potential dangers. And you need that seriousness, that awareness, and that crucial guidance of the Pir-e Moghan to navigate it, to reach that ultimate goal.
Okay.
That union with a friend, the divine.
So it's a journey that can be challenging, but the rewards are worth it, right?
Oh, absolutely. And as the ghazal continues, he even touches upon the idea of chur, that scandal or notoriety that's often associated with this intense pursuit of love.
Oh, okay.
Like it's hinting at the fact that this path isn't always understood by those who are not on it.
Right. And it can be a very public thing in a way.
It can be. It can be.
So it's setting the stage for this really deep understanding of Hafez's insights into love and the mystical journey.
It is. It really
Yeah.
is. These initial verses, they lay the groundwork for this rich tapestry of mystical feelings, that profound knowledge, the yun that permeates his entire divan.
It's amazing. So to recap some of those key insights, we've seen that this initial appearance of ease and love, it quickly gives way to the real challenges of the mystical path. And that symbolic language of the cupbearer and the wine that points to this continuous offering of divine love and knowledge. We also explored the importance of that spiritual guide, the Pir-e Moghan, and the really stark contrast between that perilous journey of the mystic, the imbois, and the unawareness of those who are, still just on the shore.
Yeah, it's fascinating how Hafez, right from the start, establishes that the depth and complexity of his understanding of love, and it really sets the stage for all of that mystical wisdom that's to come.
Yeah. It's just so rich. It really makes you think about your own experiences with love and the challenges that you face on your own personal journey. So think about it. How do these ideas about seeking deeper connections, seeking knowledge, how do those resonate with the themes we've been exploring in Hafez? Maybe you can reflect on this idea of an inner spring, and those moments in your own life that felt like a kind of divine intoxication. Join us next time as we continue to unveil the wisdom within this opening ghazal. And until then, may your own path be filled with insight and understanding.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.